All right, so this is the first actual tool, not really a framework-based thing, but the first, like, let's do anything at all that involves a pipeline, which will be the asset publisher out of Maya. Again, that's going to be my modeling and animation DCC of choice for the start. Eventually, I will probably at some point look into Blender. I just have never used Blender. So this was, I think, like 2 hours of footage, and just based on the speed, I think I might end up speeding up my subsequent videos. In the past, I was kind of worried about them looking like they were going too fast, so I tried making everything the first two at like 15 minutes, and then after that closer to 10 minutes, and I might make them even closer to like 5 to 7 minutes, because by the time I get done with the third quarter of the video, I've kind of run out of stuff to say. So yeah, I'll probably end up making the video shorter in the future. But this is just going to be like a very basic UI that the user inputs a few parameters in, and then they hit publish, and it exports the asset out to a folder based on the elements or the UI values that they entered, and the file extent or the file type based on whatever they choose. And so I'm just choosing or supporting stuff or exporting stuff for Unreal and Maya, and then in FBX and Maya ASCII format. And I could do Maya binaries and I could do Alembics, but yeah. So again, not knowing how many DCCs I'm going to be supporting with this, because again, I don't know how far I'm going to be taking this. I'm definitely going to be taking a break after I finish recording this first round of videos. The directory structure that I've chosen is basically like the top, so there's your project, and then from there, sort of the super type of whatever you're working on, or like the role, I guess, like asset, animation, texturing, and then from there it's based on the set, and the set is going to be, excuse me, like in environment art, it'll be the tile set, and then in rigging, like rigged asset modeling, it'll be like for characters and props and whatever. It'll be based on the skeleton type. So like all spiders are a set, all human warriors are a set, all like elven people, if they have a different skeleton, that'll be a set, all transformers are a set. And so the set is sort of like this broad category that groups an asset in something. And so for environments, it's the tile set, and then for all rigged assets, it's basically the skeleton. In games, you want to reuse as much as you can, so you tend to have a shared skeleton across things. You know, like you come up with your cardinal direction movements for crouching, running, walking, rolling, attacking for your main character, but you also want to reuse those for all enemies that have the same type of skeleton, so, you know, that kind of being the thing there. And with environments, it might be like you're sharing trim sheets or something. So it's just like a set is like things that belong together that you can reuse a lot of resources for, and kind of being the thematic thing that binds all of them together. And then from there, it's like your category, char, environment, effects, whatever, prop, vehicle. And then below that, I can't quite remember. I think it's the asset itself, and then below that is the subcontext, like model, rig, whatever, just the component piece or the stage development of the file. And then below that is the DCC that you're exporting the file for, so like Maya or Unreal, and then below that is the file type. And so those last two folders are specifically, I don't know how many DCCs I'm going to support, so I'm just going to make a folder for each of those to kind of separate stuff to make it easier to parse, like on the tool level per program, and same for file types. I don't really know, like, you know, Unreal uses FBXs and it has U assets in the engine. Maya could do Maya binaries, Maya ASCIIs, OBJs, FBX, Alembic, probably some others. And I have no idea like what Blender does. Things coming out of a texturing program, you know, there's all sorts of different excuse me, there's all sorts of different texture extensions like PNG, JPEG, Targa, TIFF. So probably, you know, that kind of gives us a little bit of scalability there. And then here's kind of the base pass of the UI after putting everything together. You can see like the top rows are the stuff kind of determining like where in the directory structure it's going to go, and then there's the DCC type and file type, and I could just add to those group boxes as I expand. Then at the very bottom is notes, and then we'll get some metadata when we export based on the value of the row and like the time, the date, the user who exported it, the note that they want, and we'll take a thumbnail when we go to export the assets. So that way then we can kind of see like in the browsers, the file browsers or the asset browsers, like what is the actual asset that I'm looking at. I'm just doing like a basic just play blast frame out of Maya, single frame, and that does have some color space issues that I've ran into, but I'm going to look the other way for now because there's just too many more important things that need to get up and running. So here I'm just trying to kind of figure out the specifics of the directory structure. The top part of it is largely the same as what I've kind of always done. I was sort of deciding on whether or not I wanted to put like a pub versus a versions folder, like a master publish versus like an in progress publish or something. And I decided against that. I kind of just throw them all into the same folder. So like whenever you publish it, it's going to make a version and a version list, and the version list is always the latest version. And then in the browser, we'll just add a way that you can go back through and open up the previous versions if you need. I don't really want to do like a work directory versus a pub directory. You can do that, and it is technically more control for the user if you do that. If you say, no, I'm not ready to publish it, I just want to save the file. And maybe we do that in the future, or maybe we add some metadata somewhere that's like, is this thing finished? And then if you're like looking at it in a browser, you'll know. For Maya stuff, I don't super care because it has to be an FBX form to get to the game engine anyways. So you'll kind of know if it's done, at least on the game engine side, if there's an FBX at all. And so the file extension, the file type kind of becomes like, is it a working or not? Because, Maya is not my endpoint for the pipeline. But I do need to send stuff to other DCCs, so I might be sending stuff over to Substance Painter, for example. And I don't exactly know how I'm going to do that process yet. I've tried getting into Painter's API at one time and found it to be very under-documented. So I'll have to figure that out when we get there. But again, that's kind of a ways off. And so here I think I'm just adding it to where like you can, if the value doesn't exist in the dropdown, then you can make one, which means that technically you can use this tool to like start up a whole new project. It'll make the folder, which depending on how I want to do configs in the future may or may not be a good idea. Maybe I would make like a create project window that's outside of the DCCs. And that kind of places a bunch of like necessary files or something, but for now it doesn't matter. And each of those rows with the plus button, that's like a separate class, and we're just kind of looping through a list of folder stuff or a list of strings, and it's making those, or maybe it isn't. I don't remember how I did this, and I haven't quite been paying attention here. Yeah, so working on this was kind of annoying because I was I was doing it while I was recording, and I wanted to get it done as fast as possible because I just want to get through like getting assets out of Maya in a workflow that I can iterate on and get assets into Unreal. And I didn't want the recording to go on forever because I didn't know if it was going to be too fast or not, because I didn't really do any tests for recording. I just sort of started recording. And it kind of led to a bunch of mistakes. So I think just seeing that I've got like multiple hours here, and this actually I think looks somewhat bearable for watching in time-lapse form, I'll probably be just slowing down when I go to do stuff. Yeah, so that does mean that every time that we publish an asset, we have at least 3 files that get written out. The actual file for the data, like the asset, the metadata, which will just be like a sidecar JSON file, and a PNG file, or I think it's JPEG that comes out, a JPEG file for like the thumbnail. And that, I guess, could build up depending on like if the user doesn't have a ton of space. Hopefully they'll just kind of understand what's going on as they use the pipeline and configure. I don't know. If you're going to be making a game, you should have a lot of space. The only thing that I don't do in this is if there are textures connected, it's not going to do anything with them right now. It doesn't really get the file texture nodes and like copy the textures over to the directory the assets in. I will probably add that, like most definitely. I just like I'm not 100% sure how I want to do texture tracking in the pipeline yet, because you're going to have a texturing DCC. So like, are textures coming out of there? Are they going to be in the FBX? When we import an FBX into Unreal, are we just never going to care about what textures are connected to it and just look at metadata to figure out where the textures live on disk and then import those too? Like that's all kind of unknown to me and I have no idea. So we'll figure that out also when we get there. But because of that, I'm not worrying about texture versioning or textures like recursively going through the materials and getting the textures or whatever. All right, so I did some stuff off camera. Let me show that real quick. This is like my third time recording this because Windows 11 will just not work. But I got a lot of the front end bugs figured out. They were just kind of dumb stuff about me not using correct test data. And I got this here. So we version the files now. Basically, after we export it out, we just copy them and add a version number on. And there's just a simple helper function that I have down here. Just loop through and use a little bit of regex to get the last underscore v number thing. And we also export out some metadata, looping through all the rows first, and then we just add a couple manual entries down at the bottom. Okay, so if I very quickly go to their test show that we made, just add anything here, I don't really care. There, we've just exported a few versions. That's my recordings. Go here, projects, test, and that's the one we just made. And here's all our versions. And here's what the metadata looks like. So yeah, we got some metadata, versioning, and the start of asset throughput from Maya to disk.